Hi, welcome. We're really glad to see you here, to see all of your faces. And we're excited to start this webinar where we get to meet some of our parents and talk about hand-in-hand communities.
Hi,
Hi, Carmel.
nice
to see you as well. Nice to see all of you here. So just before we start, we're going to start with a short video. Just a few things about the Zoom. As you see, this is not a webinar because we really enjoy seeing everybody's faces here, but that means we want to, as much as possible, stay on mute so we're not disrupting what's happening. We'll have the chat open for questions as they're speaking, so you're really welcome to both respond and ask questions in the chat. We'll have people responding to you there. And yeah, we're going to start with a video. We're going to have a few people speak, and then we're going to open up for questions. And the whole thing will be around an hour and a few minutes.
When you finish talking to the guy, someone seems to have taken the share from you. You have to maybe get it.
All right. Okay, we are going to start the video. All right, Andrea, take it away.
I'm Tomader. I live in Arabi.
Hi, my name is Merav Benoon. I live in Haifa with my family.
Hello, my name is Yusuf Shaheen. I live in Haifa.
My name is Itziko. I live in Lavon in the north of Israel.
It was 9 years ago. We were sitting in an old garage, which was actually where our first preschool was. We had only 12 kids, and we were talking about how we want to celebrate the holidays together. And it was then that we realized that we can't just have our kids come together and play together. As adults, we need to have friendships and relationships, and we started the community.
My children goes to Shahar and Juja, a Jewish family, and they play at their home and they come to us, and it's normal.
It has been a difficult time all around the world in the corona, and also in our community. When my family was in isolation, my son got sweet package from his friends in class, and my friends called me all the time. I didn't feel alone. Together with our community, we organized food packages for all the families that were struggling at that period.
We have neighbors on either side of our home. Ruti and Eli, they're a Jewish family, and Basma and Alan, Arab family. And they realized that they had never met each other and they never knew each other's names. Hand-in-hand families bring people together.
It's much beyond than just doing fun, right? It's more about talking and understanding each other, the political view and how they feel and how we feel about living here in this one state. And then this way of understanding, it builds the relations and the community much better.
Every time there's a conflict, Palestinian-Israeli conflict, we as adults, Jews and Arabs, come and we talk about it. It's a process, but we do it together.
In our community, we look around to see where we can make a stand, where we can raise our voice to make a change.
Being part of Hand in Hand, I saw my kids celebrating at school both Jewish, Muslims and Christian holidays. I work for an IT company and we celebrate only Jewish holidays. What we did is we decided to celebrate Ramadan, and we invited a Muslim engineer to come and tell to the entire site. This is about 200 engineers. If I was not seeing it at school, it wouldn't have happened, right? That's amazing. And I'm sure there are many other parents that see similar stuff and bring it to other places of their life.
I chose the school to get the best education for my child, but I ended up with a great, great gift for myself.
People around us are seeing that. They want to join us. Our community is growing. If it can work in hand, it can work all over the country.
Thanks, Andrea. So as you can see from this video, what we're talking about today we're talking with and about parents at Hand in Hand. Because I think, as everyone on this call knows, the schools in Israel are divided, right? There are Arab schools and there are Jewish schools. And what that means is that as kids are born and they grow up and they're 3 years old and they enter their first classroom, they enter a classroom only with other kids who are just like them. And those kids grow up and they become adults. And every adult you've ever met that grew up in Israel grew up in a separate school. And usually those adults, they send their kids to those separate schools. They continue to make that choice. But there are some parents who decide to break that chain of separation and decide to do something different, do something outside of what's expected. And they decide to send their kids to Hand in Hand schools or other schools that are mixed, that are integrated, where they're going to meet those kids from the schools on the other side of, from the other town, or from the other side, or from the other neighborhood. And as their children begin the journey, and you're going to meet a few parents right now, of course, it ends up affecting parents as well. So what we're going to hear today is about what motivates parents to make those choices. What is it like to send your kid to a school that's mixed and that's different than the school that you grew up in? And also, how do we build community? And I think this is relevant all around the world. How do we build community and connection in a society that is deeply divided? So with that, I'm going to first introduce, for just a quick few-minute introduction, the director of our community department at Hand in Hand, Muhammad Marzouk, who's also one of the founding parents of our school in Wadi Ara. We'll speak for a few minutes, and after that, we'll hear from Merab and Tomazer, who you just saw in the video. So, Muhammad.
Thanks, Noah. Good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are. I want to thank you all for joining us in this webinar, and say that for me it's always exciting to meet people who believe in our work and in what we're doing, and to see how people can support us is a very strengthening thing in a I would say complicated times here in the country when it comes to relationships between Jews and Arabs. I joined Hand in Hand 15 years ago as a parent. As Noah said, my 3 children were educated at Hand in Hand school here in Wadi Ara. But since 2013, I'm doing the community work. I'm leading the community work for Hand in Hand in all over the country. As Noah said, we at Hand in Hand do bilingual education through the shared school, but also we do the shared communities as a major second strategy for us to fulfill our vision and reach our goals, because we believe that our schools, our children go and grow up together as schools, but also we as adults live in separate communities, separate reality, and our way to make a comprehensive change in the Israeli society through breaking the segregation and the separation between the community can't be reached if we leave the adults behind. So it's not enough to integrate our children in a joint school. We want the parents, the communities to be part of this action. So this is the simple basic idea of shared community, to make a platform, to create a platform for Arab and Jewish parents and adults to come together and connect and make relationships. But it's not only that when it comes to the communities of Hand in Hand. I would say it's not a coincidence that all schools of Hand in Hand were initiated and led by community members, people who wanted to have a different education for their children. It's a community work together with the organizational work and the efforts that we put. I would say that without the efforts, the tremendous efforts that community members put in these projects, for sure it will be much more difficult for us to reach this number of schools in such a period. So the community involvement, the community pressure, the ones who bring the demand, and through them we can convince and show that there is a community demands to the authorities whether it's the education ministry or the local authorities, the municipalities. This comes through the community effort and the community campaigns that community members, leading community members do. And they continue with this support even years after the establishment of the school. I would say also that our communities are involved also to bring a different voice in the public sphere, whether it's the city itself or countrywide, whenever it's needed to bring a different voice of Arabs and Jews who believe differently, who believe that a different reality is a real thing and can be achieved. So all together, all these things together brought us to launch and to expand and believe that the community action that comes around the schools and supports the schools is also a major important thing. And I think tonight you will meet two of our fantastic and major community activists in Haifa and in Galil. And I will let you to listen to them. Very inspiring women, powerful and activists that we're all proud of to have them with us.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Muhammad. I'm really glad you could be here. So right before I move there, someone just made a note to me, and I want to make sure you all know that if you want to see this, probably best to watch this whole thing on speaker view. So if you go to the top right corner and click view, click speaker view, that's probably the most comfortable way, and then you can just see the speaker large. So that's a side note. Thank you so much, Muhammad. So as Muhammad said, there's so much that the parents do beyond, of course, being parents, the children connecting in that way around the school. There's also all of this, the community building that happens. And so without further ado, I want to pass it along to Merav and to Madar. And so I'm just going to be start with asking a few questions, and then we're going to open it up to all of you to ask questions as well. So to Madar and Merav, can you first just say hello so people can see you?
Hello.
Hi to Madar, Merav, can you say hello?
Unmute. Hi.
Great, perfect.
Everyone.
Perfect. So to Madar, I'm going to start with you. First, can you just tell us about yourself? Who are you, where you're from, how did you grow up? And tell us about the issues of when you first encountered the Jewish-Arab shared space.
Yeah, okay. Hello to everybody. I'm Madar. I live in Arabi. It's a village in the Galil. I'm a mother of Ahmad and Mada. Ahmad at first grade and Mada at the 6th grade at Galil School. As work, I'm a supervisor of school counselors at the Ministry of Education. Actually, I live now in Arabi, but before that, I lived in Haifa. Haifa, as you know, maybe it's a really mixed of Jewish and Arabs the societies. And actually, where I live, Noa, is a very special environment. Not all Arabs in Haifa lives like that, but as a kid, all my life, I lived in a shared house, actually a shared house with a Jewish family. It should be one house, but with a cottage with 2 floors. And we lived with a Jewish family with no doors, because it's supposed to be a one house. So as a kid, I can say, Noah, that I really lived with the Jewish kids really very close. But unfortunately, as a kid, it was I went to separate. We went I played with my neighbors at the afternoon, but at the mornings we went to separate schools. So that for me was a very, very artificial situation and experience. And I think that's one of the things that brought me to think about bilingual schools. It's like it wasn't natural. Okay, that's about my background also.
Great. Okay, thank you. Okay, Merav, same question. Tell us about yourself.
Hey, hi, and I'm happy to see some faces who are familiar and I met last year when I was living a little bit in the States. So it's great to see people. Thank you for coming. And I'm back in Haifa, and I've been involved with Haifa's hand-in-hand school for 12 years. I grew up in Haifa mostly, with a few years in the United States, which is why you hear my English. But I grew up in Haifa, but unlike Tomader, I grew up separate, not knowing any Arab children, not having played with any Arab children, not going or meeting as a teenager, not hanging out, not having any interaction with anyone who wasn't Jewish, really not realizing in a very sort of weird way, not realizing that we shared the city, we shared this country. It was only when I reached the university that I sat down next to an Arab student, an Arab woman, Reem, and I had a conversation with someone who, a counterpart who was Arab. So to me, having realized this, how separate I'd grown up and how this was weird, and that there could be a different way of growing up, especially in Haifa, especially in a city where there are very close relations and there are neighborhoods that are mixed. It, like Tomader, didn't make sense to me that we were raising our kids separately. It didn't make sense to me that, we were separate, that we were in separate schools. Why can't we benefit from the languages and the cultures and the traditions? So that's how I became involved. That's the reason why I became involved. I've 3 kids. My older 2, unfortunately, do not benefit from hand in hand because we didn't start it in time. But my youngest, who's in 1st grade, is a student in hand actually since he was a baby, because our school goes from the very beginning. So since he was a baby, he's been in hand. And that's it. I also work in education.
Amazing. Okay, so Merav, you already sort of answered that second question, which is why you chose hand in hand. So I will put that question back to Tomader. Tomader, do you have a few more words about why you chose to be part of Hand in Hand once you moved up north?
Yeah, and I, by the way, I'm looking and seeing the questions in the chat. I think that it relates to the question that was written here. I think that it's the most thing that made me think of that it's not good and that's not natural to go to send my kids to only Arab school is exactly related to the question that was asked here, because really I think that it's for anyone who doesn't know that it's really an artificial separation. That's why Mark is asking. I mean, it's really not natural that kids living at the same area go to separate schools, okay? Even if it's public or not public, because unfortunately, that's the separation that the Minister of Education, in that case, do in the education of kids. Arab schools and the Jewish school are separate. So that feeling of living and experiencing something that is not natural makes me think of how can I provide for my kids a school that can really give them an opportunity to experience the natural living. Okay. Also, I thought I always thought, how can I open the mind of my kids? I mean, I don't want my kids to think, to be raised in a thinking of a one-dimensional thinking. I want them to see the pluralistic views, that there is many cultures, that there are many opinions, many different and opposed opinions, and not only what you think as a kid, even as a kid, because if you raise it from the beginning, it developed then as a grown-up. So I thought that I want my kids to be in a school that open their mind to the complexity of the things, that the world is not only what you think is right and not only what you think is good, and to make them hold all the complexity that is in the world. Not only Arabs opposed Jews, it's a lot of many things more than that. So that's why I thought I want my kids to go to a Galil school.
Thank you, Tamar. So Merav, I want to turn back to you. Can you say a bit more about the community? What has it been like for you to be not only a parent at the school, but as part of a community of parents, not only for your kids, but actually in and of itself, what Muhammad started to speak about earlier?
Right. So as Muhammad said, really the community is an essential part of what we do in Hand. The story, for example, in Haifa, in the school in Haifa and other schools, is that it was a group of parents. We were a group of parents who wanted to raise our kids differently, different than the rest of the country, but in a way that made more sense to us. And I see your questions. It's weird. Israel has a separate system for Jews and Arabs. And it seemed to us that if we're neighbors and if we can be friends, there's no reason why our kids shouldn't grow up together. So we started looking for a place to really rent and bring our young kids together and tell them, and bring in a Jewish teacher, preschool teacher, an Arab preschool teacher, and say, this is how we want them to grow up, knowing both languages. Arabs in Israel do know both languages. Us Jews, we don't have that benefit because the Arabic isn't as dominant and is not taught other than in very specific spaces. So we wanted a different education. And that's when we also connected with Hand in Hand, because we said, okay, Hand in Hand is the organization that works to start these schools. And we connected, and together, the families, the community, and the organization, we have worked to create this option in Haifa. From 14 kids in 2012, we grew to maybe now we have 250 kids. Our youngest, who started with us when they were 3 years old, are now in 5th grade. And we are still working really, really hard as a community to find the net, to have our space. We don't have a school. We're hosted inside a different school. And what has happened is that we've become very close friends. We've become partners. We've become very, sort of this very tight group of people, which we're working together for our shared goals. But beyond that, we just like each other. We just have a really good time together. We just appreciate having other people to talk to about issues that are happening around us. So it's both the need of the parents and the community and the adults to make this option a reality, because it's such a different option. It doesn't really exist in Israel. You need the parents' involvement. You need to work together as a group. You need to plan. You need to think about what it is that we want to be teaching our kids, how. and what, okay? So we need to come together, but also we have this opportunity of learning about each other, about sharing traditions, just expanding our minds and our kids' minds. And that's what we do as a community, as parents who come together.
Amazing. So I think I appreciate that because it clarifies how actually at the beginning, especially in the younger communities or the younger schools, that the community was actually a driving force in creating a school. And so before Hand in Hand was even involved, it was just, you, Mirav, and people that you knew in Haifa who said, we want a school. And then we connected with the organization, and together, we helped to build this school. And then, as the school grows, the parents continue to be a driving force in supporting the growth of the school in whatever stage it's at. But in addition, of course, the community becomes something in its own right. Also not only connected to what's happening in the education of the school, although that is also a big piece of it, but also just as parents. And I wonder, Tomato, if you can continue that, and then Mirav will hop back to you, about what the community has been for you beyond the education side of it, beyond the children's side of it.
Yeah, well, actually, I want to tell you the secret. I personally, I didn't feel what is a community before I got active in hand in hand in Galil school. I always felt belong to my family, my village, my country, of course, but the feeling of community that first of all, support each other, be with each other, and have a space to say anything we want, discuss anything we want, anything we see that we want to have an effect on it. We think of steps how we can affect and have an influence on many things. This activism and the feeling of collective responsibility to the area, to the environment around us, is a very, for me, it was, this was the experience, this was my benefit of the community, of the feeling of community, even. Not only practical things, also in the feeling of being belong to a community.
Beautiful, thank you. So what I'm hearing there is both the level of feeling support and a sense of belonging, and then also how the collective action that can come with that once you build that trust. And I might ask you in a bit to give me some examples. But Mirav, do you want to continue that? What is what is the community in terms of just the adult level? What is it for you, and how have you seen that play out in Haifa?
I think, yeah, I'm connecting to what Tomato said about not realizing what a community really was. When we started, we didn't speak in this terms of community. And then at some point we did, because we said, as we're not just a family. And we had also other supporters, not just the families, the parents, because we also had other supporters who had a love for this idea of better Jewish-Arab relations, of coming together to talk about issues, of current events, but also of seeing a movie together, also dialogue. So we actually grew beyond the families of our school. And we held events, and these events pulled in people who were really just happy that what this exists at a place and people, a group of people who can come together and act and discuss and be a force. So, I mean, there's countless examples of how the community has become such an important part of my life. Such anchor sort of in wherever we want. And also it draws other people when something happens in Israel and there's a political or even a war, our community draws people who want to feel that not everything is being torn apart. If it was in 2014, when the Gaza war was, we stood and we came together just to talk about things, just to offer an alternative place where Jews and Arabs don't have to be enemies. I think, and throughout all these issues, we always say, okay, we have to separate from the kids because our children are young and we want them to be, we want to shelter them from the conflict. But we also live in a region where the conflict is constant, and not talking about it is not an option because we're together, and allowing for the adults to come together. I remember in Jerusalem, the community did these walks, right? Walking together for peace as an alternative to this very extreme situation that we had to be part of in 2014 in the war. But, in Israeli politics and in Israeli situation, there's always something. So the community becomes an anchor for where we can come together and create a different reality and believe that it's possible. It's possible for us to live together. Yusuf, my very good friend who you saw in the video, said in the end, if it can happen in hand, it can happen all over the country. And, it doesn't happen enough. We're still so small, hand in hand. Schools and our communities, we're growing. Noah, you could probably say the numbers of people who have been involved with us over the years, but it just, brings hope that there is alternative to conflict, alternative to living within the situation that everyone is just scared of each other, frightened, and grow up really as not as, in the worst case, enemies, but even just not knowing each other, not realizing that we're so close.
Thanks, Mirav. So you talked about, how the kids here are growing up differently. And so Mader, I wonder if you could tell us a little bit about, as a parent, we're going to go back to the community aspect, but first, what have you seen in your kids that have been growing up in this school for the last 6 years or so? What have you seen in them that they've gotten from this kind of alternative kind of education?
Yeah, well, I'll start with really the conflict situations that we go through here in the country. And this also, I see how my kids, both kids actually, even my kid that is in the first grade, I see how they look about these conflicts. And it's not only about when an Israeli-Palestinian conflicts are happening, also while they are solving conflicts with other kids, okay? When they face a problem with other kids, how they manage to see the other side, how they manage as kids, how they manage to really see that my feelings and his feelings could be also legitimate. And I think that this ability to think, first of all, at the school, I think raise in our kids the ability to think deeply and multidimensional thinking about the things they face, and also emotionally. Emotionally, I see my kids, for example, Mada can argue with me about how not only my feeling is the right thing, and not only my opinion is the best thing. And I think this is a great gain to see the kids that are usually one-dimensional, have one-dimensional thinking. Usually they are kids, and you can see how they even can affect you as a grown-up, as a parent. Also, I think one one thing that the school gave to Mada, for example, she's in the 6th grade, is that I feel that she has the responsibility to think, to look around her and point about too many things, not only in the Arab conflicts, or not only in the it's also, it could be the environmental, for example, problem that we have, and she can point and see that this is not good, this is not right, and this is not, there is no justice here, for example, and she can also think about what can she do. And this is the main, for me, it's the great gift to raise an activism in a child is a very, very, very important thing. And by the way, we always say at our community, the parents in the Galil school, we always say we not only exist. We do here co-resistance, not only coexistence. So that's the magic in all the story for me.
Beautiful. Thank you, Tomader. There's something so, I know for me, moving. I hadn't heard that story before about Mada, that she can both look around and see, okay, there are problems, but also think about what can I do? Because there's a lot of hope in that, right? If I think something can change, it kind of means that there's sort of hope that it can change, and also a sense, not a sense of hopelessness there. Like there's yeah, that's really inspiring. Thank you. So I had a question. So I'm getting in questions here from the chat. Okay, so one question that we have here is, how has it been? You know, we've been in such a challenging year with so much uncertainty, and I can just say in Israel, you know, where all of our schools are public schools, and so we're of course just closing and opening schools as the Ministry of Education gives us our guidelines of what we can do and how, you know, and when, oh, I can see, hold on, Tomader.
I want you just to meet Mada. This is Mada.
Hi, Mada.
Hi.
Nice to see you. So there was just a question on how it has been coping with all of the uncertainty, with the school closures, with also, you know, the divisions and the isolation that's created by everyone having to be in their homes. So I think, yeah, both of you could talk about what that's been like. Maybe Merav, we want to start, and then we'll go to some other.
You know, it's tonight, and we're trying to figure out if the neighborhood our school is in will allow our kids to go study tomorrow or not. It's 8 o'clock at night. It's such, I mean, it's been such a difficult year for us, as, you know, everywhere else in the world. And I imagine, like Lee, you said yet before, that, you know, Israel seems like a really good place to be. I just got my second vaccination yesterday. I feel good. So in some ways, it's been, you know, we feel lucky, and things have been managed well here. In other ways, you know, our kids have had very, very few days of school, of actual schooling. This, of course, has been difficult for our first graders, our younger ones, that the Zoom situation doesn't really work, and learning to read, and of course, learning a second language like this is really almost impossible. So I keep thinking about, you know, had this been a regular school year, my son would be speaking, reading, writing Arabic, but as well as Hebrew. Neither one of those are happening right now. So it's just, you know, like everywhere else in the world, it's been hard. Having said that, you know, the fact that we have a community has been life-saving. So, you know, I have kids not in hand, so I can compare. Americans don't do this as much, but there are WhatsApp groups that we have as parents. We talk on WhatsApp, and I can compare groups, and my other kids aren't in hand. Our hand-in-hand WhatsApp group is always talking and is always creating a solution. Sometimes we're complaining, sometimes we're crying, sometimes we're taking pictures of ourselves and our kids. One of the mothers, took a picture of her house. She was like, am I going back to school tomorrow, or am I looking for the nearest mental hospital? So we do a lot of that over the WhatsApp groups. And we also share some of the hardships. So we definitely have these initiations of parents who invite everyone over and do a little school, and we babysit each other and we check in with each other. And it really allows us to feel like, we're not alone in this crazy, crazy world. And it is really crazy. It's been crazy. But again, I'm sure everyone has been feeling it.
Yes, I'm sure. And I have to say that when I walked into Mirav's house, her son was writing in Arabic in a notebook. So I just want to say that that from my 5 minutes of observation, there was some Arabic happening.
It's the one thing I insist on Zoom, because I can't teach it at home. So I sit him down for the 30 minutes of Arabic Zoom.
Yeah, but it's rough, especially for little kids, to be on Zoom and learning in that way. Tomader, I see you saying words, but you're muted. So do you want to add to that? What has it been like handling COVID in the community?
Yeah, I can say that maybe it's the difference between the ages. I experienced I see my son at the first grade having really difficulties to really study as we usually know, but it's okay. I always think about how the social relationships and the connection with his teachers is the most important thing at this period, and the studying will be later more intensive, and they will do okay, because he's in first grade, so it's learning the language, the letters. It's really the step-by-step learning. But I can say about Mada, how she at the 6th grade, she really do very well at the Zoom. Really, they study, they learn, and even they don't do the PBL, the projects that they do it by Zoom, and the kids gather in groups to work on the PBL project that they do. And I think it's really working. It's really working at the 6th grade for Mada. About the period, I want to say that really at the first, when the first came a year ago, all the world was shocked, and also our community. It's like, okay, what can we do now? But fast we realized that we can do, okay, that we can first of all be for each other even more, because the situation really demanded more. Families had really needed help, even food packages, for example, when they were isolated, or even money. We had a big project of donations that was all over, hand in hand, in all over the country, and we really could manage from the community itself support for families that needed really help and support at that period, at the first period of the Corona. And also I can say that even the activism that is really very, very important, thing in our community, even that we managed to really raise it to be alive, because we, for example, I can say that we have the madrasi. It's like learning groups in the community. And this learning group, for example, in Galil, is decided to do arts, to do dialogue through arts. We bring artists, and they bring their arts, piece of arts in many in many fields, okay, and we do dialogue. We put on the table a lot of subjects that we want to discuss through the arts, and we actually do dialogue through the Zoom, okay. So I can divide the period in two periods: the shock that we thought, okay, what we can do, and then we did and continued doing what we do and even more. Noah?
Sorry, I'm sorry, I was muted. Yes, thank you, Samada. That's amazing. So we had just a question, which I think you kind of answered, but reiterate if you have anything more to say, just about how families socialize. Do they socialize? Is it natural? Are there challenges to that? Do you live in different places? Say a little bit about just like kind of the things that maybe if you're all from the same place, kind of come really easily and naturally, and if there's something a bit more challenging when you're coming from different kinds of cultures. Mirav, you want to start, and then we'll go to Mother. Okay.
Sure. So how we socialize is just regularly. We, even in these times, we have each other over for dinner. We go out together. We have like mother groups, so the mothers can go out. We have walking groups. All this is done on WhatsApp. It's really a good tool. Americans need to be in on it. So we have walking groups. We play. We're doing something for Purim. We're doing a ton, like our community does a ton of get-togethers and meetings, but also just on an individual basis, meaning it doesn't have to be all the community, but we just are regular friends. But it's interesting that I recently had two couples who are Arab from our community, but friends, and another pair of friends of ours who I know from high school. All of us live in Haifa. All of us live pretty close together. And my high school friends said that after dinner that we all had together, told me that they had never socialized in their lives and sat and had wine and dinner with an Arab couple. So it was really, to me, it's almost natural. And we forget that most places in Israel, most Israelis, these friendships don't exist. And I think it's, it's powerful in that it's so simple. We just go out and we're just friends. And of course we get along because we have a lot of shared interests and we live in the same area and we have everything, we share a lot, but it's really not common in Israel. Really, there are hardly any friendships between Jews and Arabs. And that's like the bottom line and what makes our communities so special.
Thanks, Mirav. Tamado, do you want to add something to that?
Just one socialization. I think that I want to give us an example of how we socialize through discussing conflicts. Okay, it's not always just like doing fun and having dinners or having our kids playing together. I can say about my friend. My Jewish friend, I don't like even to identify her like that, but in this case, my Jewish friend, for example, we just like to socialize by sitting and discussing things and see how can we convince each other sometimes of some of our views, or sometimes we can hold the other opposed opinion that it's not for 1 second rational for you, but for example, I like to hold my friends, for example, view. And a lot of time I tell her, okay, let's leave that. Okay, we discussed it enough. Let's leave it. We'll sleep on it, and we'll think, and that's how we develop also ourselves, because socializing is not for us, and having fun is not only in the regular way, also by really have challenge ourselves in many conversations and arguments that we really develop through these conversations.
Thanks, Tomader.
I hope
So you're saying you can really enjoy a good argument.
Yeah, that's
We'll sink your teeth into an argument. I think Merav, do you have a friend to say hello?
Yes, this is Asaf. He's a student. What grade are you in?
Aleph.
What grade are you in?
First.
First grade.
Hi, Asaf. Okay.
Yes.
Amazing. So sweet. Okay. We're winding down here. We're getting towards the end. And so I wanted to ask a question about, as we look to the future, what are some of your hopes for the future for Hand in Hand, for the schools that you're in, for your communities? What are you hoping for? Tomader, you can start. No problem.
Yeah, I have a really actual hope to the really future, close future. I hope, for example, to have a school at the Galil near us, that bilingual school that continues to high school. My kid now at the 6th grade, so I have a problem. Where can I go? Where can I send her at the 7th grade? So I really, if I dream, I want to dream that for my kid, for Ahmad at the 1st grade, I want him to continue till high school, in hand.
Beautiful. Merav, what about you?
Yes, I identify with your dream, Tomader, and we are, as I said before, still struggling to have our own building even. So in Haifa, we're sort of on a journey to be recognized and to be put in our own building. And of course, we hope to continue together. We've had a community member say that in Haifa we'll be together till the cemetery, that in the cemetery we'll make it Jewish Arab. So throughout, we need to stay together. Definitely, that would be our dream. Our dream would be to be just in a more stable situation, because it isn't. And the struggle, it comes at a cost. We're always, on the one hand, our kids, like Tomader said, are growing up to be activists, and to realize that we can create something that doesn't exist, and to realize that we have to fight for what we believe in. But on the other, it's tiring. So we really hope that we'll be successful in what we're trying to work out with our municipality in Haifa, and that we'll be able to grow to a middle school and ultimately to a high school, so our kids can continue growing up together.
Thank you, Merav. So I think with that, we're going to close with those hopes. And I know, as Merav said, it's both, there is so much hard work being put into that. And I just give a huge thank you to Tomader and Merav, both for being these pioneers, people who are courageous in choosing this other way. And in being diligent and consistent in working to making that happen, both of course, for yourself and your children, but really for the entire society here, and for all of us and all the partners around the world who believe in what we're doing. And with that, I'm going to pass it on to Dani, Elazar, our CEO here at Hand in Hand, to close us out.
Hi, good evening, everybody, and really thank you very much for taking the time and joining us this evening. I'm going to make this short because I just want to tell you sometimes we don't always understand how unique this is here in Israel. One of the participants just wrote that we're not always aware how segregated the society is here in Israel. So it's not only the schools that are separated. It's also mostly we live in different cities. We read different media. We're like in one country, but a bit in different regions. And to understand how unique this is and how inspiring Tomater and Merav are and all the other parents and all the other communities we have here in Israel, is to hear how natural they're talking about being together, living together, having the students come every day to the same school and study together and learn both languages, Arabic and Hebrew, and learn the different cultures together. And for their kids are growing up in a place where it's so natural. And the parents are leading this. And this is very important. We as Hand in Hand, we're supporting the parents in leading their activities in each community. And when I see them and they're telling you now about how they meet each other and the good time they have together and the conversations they have together, but we hardly talked about how much time they invest in starting a school, how much time they invest in growing the school, how much time they invest in working with municipalities and the Ministry of Education together with us to get the full recognition and so on. So these parents are investing their lives into what we're doing here. And I think that's where I always feel so thankful to the parents and to the communities, because they're helping us lead this great big project and program. And every school we start becomes a model for shared society, for the community, for the city, and for the full society. So, and always my feeling is when I walk into Hand in Hand school or into a community, that here is an optimistic future picture of how Israel could be. So I'd like to thank again Tomater and Merav very much for what they do and for sharing it with us this evening. And of course, Noah and everybody who was part of preparing this evening, and mostly also you, our partners that support us, long-term support, and join us on these webinars and come and listen and ask questions and give us ideas. I've seen the chat here with different ideas. So we're really very, very thankful, and it gives us a lot of like a strength, the trust and the support you give us from the state. So thank you very much for being with us this evening.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.